good.
That's been a perennial problem, hasn't it?
Well,
Do you remember 20 years ago we were talking about that?
just like my golf swing, I'm continuing to make improvements.
There you go. There you go. Good stuff. Thank you for doing this. And right after our interview, which will be brief, I need a couple of minutes with David, but if you will be available, I have about 3 things I need to cover with you. So I'll call you back, okay?
Okay.
You'll be in the office?
I'll be with my telephone.
Okay, I'll catch you. Thank you. David, you got the con.
Yep, I'm recording. I'll leave you guys to it, and I'll just be a fly on the wall.
Okay, let us know when you're ready.
Yep, you go for it. I'm ready.
Okay. So, Julius Pryor III, serial chief diversity officer, global head of diversity for some of the major companies in the world, accidentally got into this field. You and I have worked together in 7 different organizations in both a coaching, consulting, or advisory relationship. I'm most interested in the coaching relationship. How do you think that coaching affected your journey? How did it help you or hinder you from achieving what you have achieved in the field?
That's a good question. And first of all, it's very difficult for someone who has achieved some degree of success and feels that they're proficient in a certain venue to listen to a coach. I mean, what is it that a coach can tell them? What is it that someone who is there to advise can advise them on when I already think that I know what I need to know to move forward? So the most important thing in the coaching relationship was to have someone that I not only respected, but someone that I was willing to listen to, who was going to tell me things that would at times make me uncomfortable, but at the same time knowing that they would make me better. So the most important thing that you brought to the table, Jim, was the fact that I was actually willing to listen to you and had some respect for what you were able to bring to the table in terms of helping me think about certain things. That was the most important part, just being able to respect someone and listen to their perspective. The other thing that was critically important was that you had an inherent feel for what it was like for me to be within these organizations, that even though I was knowledgeable about the work that I was doing, this was still at times, it could be intimidating, it could be challenging, it could be frustrating because of the people that I was working with at such a senior level in those organizations. So you had empathy for what I was dealing with and didn't brush off my trepidation at times. So that was the second thing that was very important, the empathy that you actually brought to the relationship. And the third thing, and maybe the most important thing, was that we had a relationship of trust. And all of those things helped me look at some barriers that were getting in the way of my success. And at the same time, you were able to help me think about the things that I was doing correctly and the successes that I was having. So it wasn't all just criticism or things that I was doing that I needed to work on. You equally talked about the things that I was doing well. Did that answer the question?
Oh, that was outstanding. And I'm glad that was helpful to you. I want to shift gears now that you start talking. In my mind, you are the prototype of the modern CDO. In other words, that's what a chief diversity officer should do, are a lot of the things that you pioneered in the various roles that you had. Talk a little bit about how to be effective as a chief diversity officer. You know, in my studies, my academic studies, I've discovered that a lot of people in those roles are not given good assignments. They're not told what they're to produce. They have to make it up on their own. And many of them wind up not being very effective. In fact, as you know, the average tenure of a CDO is less than 18 months. You go in, You make promises, you don't deliver, they don't deliver, you move on to the next company. So you have beat the odds on that many times. So tell me a little bit about what your unique take on it has added to the role of the Chief Diversity Officer.
Well, oftentimes people laud you because they say, "Wow, you're so experienced. You really understand how to successfully move through these complex organizations." And what I reply is that, well, that's just because I've made so many mistakes and bumped into so many walls that I've somehow learned from those things, and each time I get a little better. Early on, and the answer to your question is, early on, I thought that a lot of these things, a lot of the challenges that I faced in very complex corporate organizations could be addressed by training activities, by putting together unique learning platforms, and that people, especially leaders in organizations, would understand if I presented a logical case to them. And what I found, and the other thing that I believed is that when I was reporting to a very senior executive, in some cases I was reporting to the CEO, that I had portfolio, that everyone would automatically listen to what I had to say because I was reporting to their boss. Both of those things proved to be fallacies. And what I found out was that even though I did need empirical data to make my case, and even though the education and training activities were helpful at times, what ultimately made the difference was understanding how to build relationships of trust with these senior leaders. And oftentimes that had nothing to do with the tactical actions of moving a diversity, equity, inclusion strategy forward, but it had everything to do with simply understanding what their hopes, fears, and aspirations were, and then spending time with them so that we would have trust between us and could talk about any number of subjects outside of the realm of simply the functional areas that we were working in. So that's what I found is most important now. It's not doing the actions of moving a diversity strategy forward. All of those things are somewhat didactic. It's simply being able to build relationships of trust. And a lot of that as I've really found recently, a lot of that happens outside of the walls of the corporation. It happens in informal settings. I have been in settings now where there's a lot of golf played or where it's some other event, and that's where the relationship is developed. So I've had to become more comfortable being uncomfortable, especially in the venues where I've been asked to play golf. These are some very exclusive places, places where people of color aren't necessarily prevalent, but yet and still that's where the relationship is developed. And so those relationships of trust have been how I've been able to move things forward. And building those relationships has also led to the development of other relationships after those people have developed trust in me. They say, Julius, there's somebody else I'd like you to meet because I think you can help them. Or there's somebody else who's been asking me about some of the things we're talking about. Could you give them a call? Could you talk to them? So, and I think that this is a mistake that a lot of people make early on, that they feel that, well, if I'm just doing the parameters of my job, if I'm just good at the work that I'm doing, if I just excel there, that's what's required. But again, it still comes down to relationships. Much more so than we'd like to admit. It's all about relationships.
Powerful message. Powerful message. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for your friendship and your trust in my abilities as a coach.
Well, you've been patient with me, Jim. There have been times when I've screamed and yelled at you, been upset with you, and you sat there patiently and took my immature rants, but the underlying friendship and trust was always there, and we never lost that. And the other thing that you've done such an exceptional job of, especially as I brought you in to consult with me in certain situations is you've been willing to be in the background. You didn't have an ego that, and I have run into people who have been there and that were supposed to be consulting and assisting me, but yet they wanted to be up front. You've never been reticent to say, well, my role is in the background. I'm going to tell you what you need to say. And then there'll be certain situations where I'll step up, Julius, and say certain things that may be awkward for you to say within the context of this corporation, but you're going to be the person who's the front man and you're going to get the credit for this. My role is to be in the background. And that requires a unique kind of personality because most people who are very good at something want everybody to know they're good at it. So you've been unique in that aspect of your comportment because you've always been willing to do what was in the best interest of the team as opposed to what's in the best interest of Jim Rodgers.
Thank you, my beloved brother. I'll talk to you in a couple of minutes, okay?
Okay.
Amazing.
You get enough to work with?
I think